This is the Michael Brighton Show. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. And today I am joined with Tiffany Perkins-Munn, who is on a mission to bring research, analytics, and data science to life. She works as head of data analytics for JP Morgan and Chase, amongst other companies as well. And we're going to dive into the human element of data. So, Tiffany, thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mike.
So let's start with essentially why companies and businesses use data. So why do they do it and how do they do it?
So they do it because they have no choice, meaning it's everywhere, in every transaction, in every customer visit, in every report. It's necessary. It is a necessary part of every industry and every business. And so that's the why. Like, it is integrated into the way that we live our lives day in and day out, from the alarm clock that wakes us up in the morning to the way that we can manually lock our doors when we leave the house, to, the number of people who are catching subway trains and taking different types of transit on a daily basis, to the way that we are running our businesses day in and day out. So it's everywhere. So I think first and foremost, people should just accept that it's everywhere. It's not just like data gurus over on the side. Those people over there are doing data. We're all doing data. And the sooner that everyone comes to terms with the fact that they too are doing data, the easier it will be for them to think more strategically about it and incorporate it into how they actually run their businesses and think about their business. So that's the why. I think the how varies. Clearly, there are very sort of fundamental questions that any business owner needs to answer. How many people are doing this? Who's most likely to do it? How often are they doing it? How is it a conversion opportunity? So there are some fundamental questions that most businesses need to answer that don't require sort of higher order statistical analyses. And those, I would say, are pervasive. And everyone should be doing those basic sort of fundamental things, answering those basic questions about their consumers, their consumer base, what they're doing, how they're doing it, to better understand how to engage in the most meaningful way for the consumer. And then there are others who are thinking more, or either database businesses, if you think of, search engines or Google, or are businesses that have graduated to thinking at a higher level about analytics. And so they may be doing more of the sophisticated analytics that we hear about, the machine learning, the artificial intelligence, and even the generative AI, right? So when we think about ChatGPT and other things like that, most people can engage with those today. And most people are thinking about how to do that in a way that is governed and a way that keeps companies and individuals safe. So I think there is a hierarchy of how, just depending upon where you are in your business. But I would say that on a fundamental level, everyone should be doing some degree of data and analysis for their businesses.
I have a bit of an idea as to why, because if you think of how companies can improve and make changes and actually make the customer experience better, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards in terms of why would they do it? Why should they gather data? Why should they accumulate things? Because it helps you understand people and customers and how people use what it is that you do, so then you can make things better. But then you mentioned that some of them can be intrusive and the methods aren't always completely okay as far as the customer goes. Then does that become not necessarily a good idea, even if the benefits might be helpful, as in, do the ends justify the means as far as that goes? Why would someone go to those lengths?
Well, governance is really key, and privacy is extremely, extremely important. But I think we have been conditioned in a society where we are not that familiar with, we're becoming more familiar with the collaboration that a consumer should have with a brand that they engage with, right? So historically, people have been like, oh my God, I looked up this item and then I logged on to some, social media platform and they were offering me a similar item and they find that creepy. However, it has more to do with what we understand about the business and how the business engages with us as individual consumers. And we've never really had a say in that historically. We've always been really focused on how we can think through data and analytics and what that means for us as individuals, but never in partnership with our corporations or companies or our brands. And as a result, we also haven't had the tools or the facilities or the faculties at our disposal to really move forward in a collaborative way with the brands. So our tendency is just opt out, don't let them know what you're doing. And, then they can't track you and they won't understand. But the flip side of that is that in doing so, you also limit the possibility for a brand to really know you well, to really understand who you are as a customer and to drive things to you that are not spammy, meaning they're not just driving every opportunity, every offer, everything they have to you, that they're being really constructive and creative about how they send you information. And that's I would say a journey that we're on together as brands and consumers and individuals and corporations, really trying to figure out how do we partner with consumers so that they feel empowered to have a say in how we use their information so that we can get smarter while protecting their privacy about how we engage with them.
Am I right in thinking then that there is a point where they need enough information so that what they are going to put to you is then helpful and then not spammy, and it almost prevents the spray and pray element that some companies used to use, because then that would be then perceived as spammy. But then if they know enough about you, that then kind of cuts that out. It focuses it in on your interests, what you were talking about previously, because it actually becomes more valuable to do that than the alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. You want them to know as much about you as a brand as they possibly can. So that's why you see a lot of brands doing funnel strategies that start with awareness. How do we get the consumer to understand who we are as a brand, what our products and offerings are, and even more importantly, these days, what we believe in, what we stand for, what our values are, right? And then moving further down the funnel, they become interested in you, they start to consider you as an option until they get to the bottom of the funnel where they actually convert on some opportunity or some offer that you're giving them. But it is a strategy in terms of how you bring people into the fold to help them understand who you are. And some people do that better than others, right? That's why certain things can seem spammy sometimes, because brands are sending information to people or offers to people who don't really know who they are. They haven't taken the opportunity to create that awareness, create that sort of upper funnel type of engagement so that people start to become knowledgeable about who they are, their products and services, what they stand for, the positions they take on certain issues, and then begin, engaging with them in a more formal way around products and services.
One of the things that came up was sometimes it's actually more personal to learn someone's values or beliefs or what they stand for or their preferences, where they lean politically, that sort of thing. Almost like the deeper they go with that, the more they know you, the more personal it gets and the more, I guess, valuable that information becomes. Everyone's going to have a point where they're thinking, no, that's too personal. I don't really want any company to know that about me. Does everyone have their own personal limit with things like that? And how can companies ever know that? It seems like it's not something you're ever really going to be able to be okay with. You're always going to get eventually people that don't like what it is that you're doing, where somebody else might be okay with it.
Right. And when they don't like it, they will opt out. They will literally say, please don't send me any more communications on this topic. So the challenge for the business is, how do we figure out what that threshold looks like? You won't get it right for every person, but if you think about it as a continuum, there are going to be people, and by the way, I'm this person, who are like, yep, you could see, where I'm going, what I'm looking at, what I'm doing, and please, by all means, use that information to offer me things that are interesting and unique that I might be interested in, right? To use that information to target me in the most effective way. That's one end of the spectrum. That's me. And then there are those who are like, only want to use certain channels, are not interested in being contacted. In fact, don't want any of their information to be utilized at all for those purposes. So the key is, how do you find the sweet spot? So if you think about it as a bell curve, those two extremes that I just gave you sit on the outer limits of the curve, like the lower limits of the curve, on the low side and on the upside. It's the group in the middle who have some degree of interest in you helping them understand what's better for them, and some degree of understanding of privacy and how it works and what they need to do. So it's a little bit about literacy, them consumers figuring out what their options are for how they engage with brands, and brands, companies, businesses figuring out, how do you get to a point where you understand what a consumer's threshold is. And you won't always get it right. And you want to keep them from opting out so that you can't send them anything, but you want to try to monitor the activities that they take against any of the offers that you make. So you can say, oh, okay, well, they clicked on the link, they did look at it, even though they didn't stay on the page that long. So that suggests that things like this, they are interested in. Versus they didn't click the link. If you see that they don't click the link, they don't open it, they don't go into it ever, and you keep sending them that kind of information, they are more likely to opt out. So there are some analytics, even around how prospects are using information, that we need to understand and start to analyze in order to help us as businesses have better decision making about how we even engage with customers in the first place.
This seems like such a complicated web of decisions, and whether it's okay to do this and whether it's okay to do that. It seems like you're in a constant state of learning and adapting. And you mentioned AI before. Is that something that is utilized now? Are people using AI? Have you had any experience with it yourself? And what have the results been?
Of course, aren't you using it? Aren't you using Chat GPT, Mike?
Sometimes, usually I use it just as a research tool if I want to find out something and that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how everyone's using it. So machine learning and AI have obviously been around for a long time. We've been building recommendation engines. Amazon is recommending things. Netflix is recommending things. Supervised learning, where you train the system to get better at making recommendations to you based on past behaviors. That's something that has been around for a very long time. Firms and corporations and businesses have been using machine learning and AI for, in that way for a while. I don't think that is as tangible to most people as something like generative AI, which is Chat GPT, which can also learn, meaning it can get smarter as you write questions and ask it questions. It can start to get smarter over time as well. But previous versions of like building models to do predictive analytics to kind of decide, which is still very popular and very powerful, just aren't as tangible to everyday consumers, because you have to understand statistical principles and modeling techniques and all of that. There's some degree of that you have to kind of understand to connect with what's happening in those spaces. In generative AI, it's easier for just a typical consumer to connect, right? Because they are it's you write in the question, you get an answer. Now there are challenges, like, you have to think about the fact that the system can hallucinate and give you wrong answers. And so I think we want to make sure we don't oversubscribe into generative AI as the be all end all de facto answer for things, right? Especially things that are nuanced and not as well known, where the system will in fact hallucinate. In fact, to give you an example, the other day, a friend and I, we were looking up this guy who we know who used to play basketball. We ran into him at a party and he was talking to us about when he was playing for the Knicks. And I came home and I was like, oh, he played for the Knicks. Where else did he play? And I said, let me ask Chat GPT. And then my other friend said, well, let me look up NBA.com stats to see if I can find him. So we both did the exercise. I looked through Chat GPT. I put in his name. I said, please tell me about this person and what you know about him. And they looked up his name in NBA.com stats, and which gave his history. Now, Chat GPT told me that this person had been recruited by the Knicks, that he had played for the Nuggets, that he had played for the Wizards, and they went through, like this lineage, and that he had been such a significant contributor to teams, etc. Now, turns out NBA was like, he was recruited by the Nuggets. He never played for the Knicks or the Wizards. He actually went overseas and played overseas for a long time, and then subsequently came back and was a commentator, right? So that gives you an example. Chat GPT was absolutely wrong. And it gave it to me, as you know, Chat GPT does, in a very, like confident, sure way. Like, this is what I found on this person. Turns out it was completely wrong. And NBA.com, which had the stats, was giving us the information about the accurate information about this person and their history as an NBA player. So those are the challenges. But, I think people assume like, oh, I go into Chat GPT and this is the answer it gave me and it's the right answer. Don't assume. That's also why people don't have to worry about these things taking their jobs. Like right there, I just told you about a new job that someone has to have, which is making sure that Chat GPT is actually giving out the right information, right? So while yes, some jobs will become automated, there are a whole slew of additional jobs that will become available that have not been available historically, which is one of the reasons why it is a compelling area for people to engage with, and also to think about building skills and expertise in, so that they can really take advantage of the future of this type of technology.
That sounds like a job for, let's say, quality control in if technology is going to get to a point where it's capable but not accurate, as you mentioned then, at what point are companies going to start utilizing it over a human?
I think human intervention will always be necessary. I think AI by itself is often wrong. Humans by themselves, as we know, are often wrong. You put them together with the automatic processing power of AI to kind of sort through history quickly to pull out key pieces, with the human's ability to do intelligent processing around what makes sense and what doesn't. And then you have a great combination. So I think AI 1+1 in that case does not equal 2. It's an exponential return when you mix the power of and capabilities of AI with the intellectual processing and reasoning and common sense making that humans bring to the table. So together they work wonderfully. As individual entities, they are each flawed in different ways.
In your experience then, Tiffany, do you have any stories of pre and post data science for companies? So let's say, what has it been like for consumers before they started using data science as opposed to afterwards?
Yeah, even if I look at like the MTA system in New York, there was a time when you would go down on the platform pre-data science techniques, and you would expect the train at a certain time. the train wouldn't show up. You would have no idea when the train was coming, and you just wait. Maybe you could ask a conductor who might be able to reach out to a dispatcher somewhere who could kind of give you an estimate. Now, with data science techniques, you can see that the MTA knows this train left in a delayed fashion, which will make them delayed to the next few stops. Here are the places where they can gain traction. They can think of all the inputs into what time that train will get to your station, and they can put up a note on the board that this train is 30 minutes late, or this train is 15 minutes late. They can send you text messages before you leave your house to say this train is an hour late. So if you haven't left your house, which you might have done in the past because you're like, oh, let me get to the train in ample time, you might be standing there waiting on the platform. Whereas now they can send you text messages to let you know that something is departing late, running late, so that you can adjust your schedule accordingly in real time, right? And I think the in real time piece is very important. There would be a time when you could buy things, but you wouldn't know what else in the world was available that was similar. Like, I like this certain look and feel of furniture or of clothing, and you only knew what was available to you in the store. Maybe once online shopping started, you could look online a little bit to see what was there, but in limited ways. Now, you buy anything from anywhere in the world. You can search anything. You can figure out, and they can send it to you regardless of where you are in the world. So there have been a lot of benefits with the ease at which consumers have been introduced to brands and products, the ease with which they can get access to both information about brands and products, but also the product themselves. Ease with which you can connect to individuals. So it's not even always about consumers. You have marketplaces online where individuals can now sell to individuals, and you can get something at a reduced cost because it's being sold by another individual. Somebody maybe doesn't want it. There are even things you can get for free. So there are lots and all of this is because of the use of data science techniques to help understand what consumers want, how we can make the customer experience better, how we should engage with them. Like, is it better that we send them an email? Because we know that this person looks at email a lot, but doesn't really do a lot on the mobile app versus, there are people who do everything on the app. Like, if they have a phone and they can do it on the phone, everything is done on the phone. So for those people, maybe you want to send them an opportunity and add an offer on the mobile app versus on email, right? So all of this has made it much more convenient for the consumer, and to access information, to access products and services, to understand the breadth of products and services that are out there, and to get deep information about a product or service. Like, you put in a microwave. Used to be that you put in the microwave came with the instructions. You can't find the instructions. You don't know how to go find information on that microwave. You can literally now go search for that information online, put that information in Chat GPT, or even in a traditional Google search, because now they're all using sort of AI chat, and you can find the instructions and sometimes even a video that'll walk you through how to do whatever it is you're trying to do with that microwave. So those are some of the conveniences that data science have brought to the everyday lives of consumers.
Now, I can almost wrap my head around the shopping experience in terms of, I don't know, let's say you search for a microwave and then you get the recommendations of you may also like this. I wonder if you can share about something that might not be so straightforward, like movies, for instance, things like Netflix. What data are you getting from films and movies so that the recommendations can be accurate? Because I've had some weird experiences where I've watched a film and then there will be three recommendations that were almost identical to the movie or series that I've just watched. what goes through the system there? Because I'm thinking, okay, books, you've got genre, you've got the author, maybe. What happens with movies? I can't wrap my head around it.
So Netflix has gotten really smart. It used to be that if you watched, let's say, an action flick with a male, hero protagonist, for example, that they would send you an action flick with a male hero protagonist. They are now starting to think about, as you mentioned, the actor, the genre, the other actors, the director, right? And they are now trying to be more creative about the time. So they may now send you something that the hero protagonist plays, a movie that this hero protagonist does that is a comedy. Like it seems like you like this guy because you're always watching the movies that he's in. So how about this other movie, not an action drama, but or action thriller or whatever, but it's a comedy and this person is playing in it. So whether or not you watch that will determine what you get offered next, right? Because if you watch it, then you're telling the system that's learning as you're choosing, oh, it's not just action dramas or action movies with this, hero protagonist that I like. It's actually the hero protagonist. And so I want to see other stuff that he's in. Or it's not just this particular hero protagonist, it's any movie that's directed by James Cameron. That's what I want to see. So it's starting to learn based on the choices that you're making over a broad swath of options. So not just the people in the movie, the director, the genre, the type of movie, when it shows, like lots of characteristics. When you normally view, when you're normally on the app, what do you do when you're on the app? So using all of that information to help make better suggestions to you. And sometimes they're off. I know they've sent me like anime stuff before, and I'm like, that's interesting, but no. And, after a while, like they may try a couple of different ones because just me not selecting one anime film is not saying that I don't like anime. It could be that I just didn't like the one they sent me. So I think I watched, my daughter likes anime, and I think I watched Demon Slayer with her on my account. And as a result, they kept trying to send me anime stuff. But then after probably like a month, they stopped because they realized that something else had happened where I was actually watching Demon Slayer and it wasn't one of my preferences. So it's using all the information that you're inputting by clicking, selecting, choosing, sorting, even saving in your wish list to make determinations about what you might like next. And I think I read an article that said that some of the feedback they had gotten was that like there are lots of hidden movies out there that people just haven't been exposed to because they're not big blockbusters and they're independent films, or they're sort of, if you think about theater, they're like off Broadway, kind of those movies. And people aren't being exposed to them. And I think they have been trying to change the algorithm so that they can find movies like that aren't like the big cinematic blockbusters, but are also interesting to consumers. And Netflix builds a lot of its content, I think, based on that feedback as well. Like, feedback that consumers are making about the type of movies they like, the genres they like, the sort of the quirky elements that they may want in movies, and building its own original content to satisfy some of those gaps. Now, I'm speculating. I don't work for Netflix, but just knowing what I know about data science and machine learning and algorithms, these are assumptions I am making based on my own experience in using the tool and knowing how it has modified the selections that it's presented to me over time.
Those people that are creating this content, whether it's books, movies, products, shopping, that sort of thing, are they having to put more data into the system to then have it more likely to be shown to people through the recommendations and that sort of thing? Like I'm feeling like if someone's just going to put one or two bits of information in, it could actually limit how many people are likely to see it. But then if you give more, you'll likely get more back.
Of course. I mean, that's pretty intuitive. The more information you know about your consumers, the better you can target, right? That's any industry, any product. Like the more you know, the more accurate you can be in making recommendations and targeting. So you're going for a comprehensive view of customer. You might start out with just knowing a little bit about the customer because they're a prospect, they've never purchased anything from you, then they make a quick purchase. That gives you another piece of information. And once they become a customer, once someone becomes customer of a brand, they're more willing to then share certain information. So or allow you to know certain things, I should say, about how they use your products and services, other products and services that they use. And so every piece of additional context that you can add to the system to improve the algorithm makes the algorithm smarter, which means that you as the consumer will then get better suggestions made to you. Will those suggestions always be on spot on? No, because part of what the system is doing is learning. It's throwing out some things, making some sort of off the cuff kind of choices based on maybe someone else who has a similar profile to you liked this off the cuff choice. So they're trying it to see if you like it as well. But once they figure out that you do like it or you don't, that's yet another piece of information that they will put into the system to make the algorithm smarter, to make even better choices for you. So yes, the more information we know, the more a consumer engages with the brand, the more that information can be used to make even more targeted, interesting, and useful and relevant recommendations to the consumer.
I find the idea that this system is learning and developing over time so fascinating. Like the idea that it can get better and more focused and more personalized and more valuable as well. Like, just imagine how much valuable the system can be once it learns more about you as the customer. I think everything would improve and get better. Like, the value of it is just huge. But then as the consumer, what top tips would you have for someone in terms of how to share information? What are some of the best practices that you've seen from the consumer side?
I think consumers, because the people are, the challenge is that human nature, there's a yin and a yang, right? And there's the good and the evil. And sometimes people are not using information for good. They get the information and use it in nefarious and malicious ways. As we know, people steal identities. I was just watching the news, and so a lady was just buying some simple, someone was asking, a group of boys was asking her to donate to some charity. And she gave him her phone. Mistake number one, never give your phone to anyone, to put in the information so that she could donate to the charity. And he ended up like stealing $2,000 out of her account or something like that. So there are some obvious things that you shouldn't do, like give your definitely not your phone, but even your personal information, giving out your personal information in places that you know or don't know to be secure. You don't want to just share it out broadly with anybody and everybody. This is why literacy and knowledge are so important. You want to know who you're talking to, what you're talking to them about, giving them information that you feel comfortable sharing, not sharing out anything. For me, even now when I get a call, like it'll say your account has been compromised or something. Like I'll get a text, my account has been compromised. And click this link here to fix it. Or to investigate, whatever it says, I never ever click that link. If they tell me that my Chase account has been compromised, I call the bank, because I want to make sure that it is actually Chase that's texting me. I want to make sure that that email is actually coming from a reputable vendor, because sometimes one of the things that consumers can do is double click on the email and the underlying address will show up. And sometimes the underlying address is some address that has no association with the name of the vendor. It just looks like that in the email. So there are definitely things that we as consumers can do, like clicking on, double checking to make sure the email is actually coming from the vendor, not clicking on the link in your text messages, call the vendor if they say you need to call. They do those scams where they call you and say that the child is in the child's voice. And especially now that they are starting to use AI to sound like people, you could actually think that it's your loved one or your friend, et cetera, but not acting in a knee-jerk way, like pausing for a moment, calling that person, calling someone who knows that person, making sure before you participate in things like that. So it does require that we have more agency, which I appreciate, in the decisions that we're making. It's annoying because it also adds more steps. Like now I can't just click the link that came from Chase because who knows, maybe it didn't come from Chase, maybe it came from someone else. So now I actually have to call the bank. So it's a give and take. It gives you more agency as a consumer, but it requires that you be more intentional in your responses, which could add more steps to getting to the solution or the resolution that you need.
That's an interesting point, actually. And I was thinking that in terms of, okay, you get an email and then you can't really respond through the email in case it's not where, didn't come from where they said that it came from. And as you say, it's like you end up in this loop of every time I get told something, I need to go direct versus through this channel that could or should actually be direct but isn't. It just adds an extra layer of thinking that, especially in today's world where everything seems to move so quickly, that it's actually less likely to happen. How do you encourage that? Is there an element of, don't do things in a rush, don't do things in a hurry, don't make snap decisions?
When emotions are involved, right? People tend to make knee-jerk reactions. So it is a little bit of training ourselves to operate in the world differently. But it's not a difficult thing to do because we've been learning that lesson along the way. The systems and processes have been training us in a way, right? They've been teaching us, oh, look what happened to her. She tried to do that. She gave him her phone, didn't end well. Oh, look what happened to him. He got a text. He clicked the link, didn't end well. Look, and so forth and so on. Like, look at that. She responded to that email, didn't end well. So I think that all of these occurrences that have been happening have been sort of training us to be more vigilant, to be more intentional. And all that we can do is like remember them in the moment, emotionally, when something happens, especially with our money, with fraud, we are like, wait, what happened? And we immediately click on whatever. So you have to sort of have ownership over those emotions so that you can remember, oh, wait, let me step back. Okay, let me call the bank. Was there a problem with my account? No, because I received a text message that said there was fraud on my account and I needed to click the link. Nope, don't do it, right? So it is about retraining yourself, but I don't think the retraining is hard because I think in our everyday experiences that we hear, that we share with other consumers, we hear of all of the things happening that are in effect helping us to train our own behavior so that we are more intentional in the decisions that we're making.
That's a very good point. It's almost like you learn from other people's experiences and then they inform your own. I quite like that idea as well. But then do you not feel like, I mean, it's probably one of those situations where if it doesn't end well, you don't want to recreate that. But then there's a lot more cynicism because of it. There's a lot more skepticism because of it, which in this world anyway, it's probably warranted. But then did you find that that may be unhelpful in other areas? Because life isn't really, just engaging with companies and businesses and emails and texts and, encouraging ideas and creativity and just trying to be a bit happier, I guess, being bombarded with emails all day, every day, and only one out of 100 are relevant or
Right.
official. It makes other interactions a little bit more skeptical as well.
Well, I think it's inherent in for companies and consumers to manage that. And by that, I mean, in giving and sharing information with with businesses, you are teaching them to be smarter so that they are not sending you multiple emails a day asking you things. Like they get smart to the point where they realize that Mike doesn't want X, Y, and Z. We've sent it to him. He doesn't respond. We're going to stop sending him that. We'll send him, something else. We'll try something else. What I can say is that businesses are trying to be more intentional. Consumers are by default becoming more intentional because of everything that happens. And I think that intentionality is pervasive in our lives, where we are starting to be not jerk reactions, starting to think in more critical ways about how we respond to things, what our approaches are, even how we intellectualize and think about solutioning for problems that aren't related to, like companies, like in our everyday lives. We think through, I think what all of this does is train us to think more broadly and differently across a whole host of scenarios, right? If you're learning behavior modification and behavior change as a result of everything that's happening in the data science AI space, you're not just going to take those learnings and apply them to those situations. Those then become a part of how you make your decisions in your day-to-day life. And that's the important part that I think people should embrace, because I think it happens, quite frankly, without people realizing it. You're not in a class where someone is teaching you, do this, 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 and this. It's happening to you as you go through life, either through an experience of your own or as through an experience of someone else. At any rate, you're bringing that into your own knowledge, and you are using that in your own personal algorithm when you are making decisions. And so it's not as straightforward as, oh, that happens over there, and this is the decision-making technique that I use for those situations. It becomes a much more pervasive and inclusive part of our decision-making strategies in our own lives.
Good point as well, because if you think of using AI, I'm picturing a world where we need to be even smarter. Like we need to be even more purposeful, need to be even more vigilant, and just try to actually do the extra steps that you mentioned before. Because when AI starts to take hold of things like this, it's almost like we need to up our game as consumers and as regular people to be able to, I guess, manage it or govern it or have a say over how much of an impact it has over our lives as well.
That's right. And I think the upping our game part you said is super important, because part of the up in our game is happening automatically, which is what I was just talking about. But part of the up in our game has to be intentional. And goes back to what we were talking about early on, Mike. Like, data is everywhere. It is in every decision that we make, from what we eat for breakfast, right? So people are using the decisions that we make around what we eat for breakfast to make determinations about what should we serve for breakfast, what recipes should we have on our site for breakfast foods, like even simple decisions like that. We look up a recipe and we end up using that recipe for dinner or something. Like, someone knows that we looked at that recipe and can say that, oh, this recipe has been used by X number of people, right? To show that this is a very good and recipe that most people like, right? So every single decision, the lights you're using in your house, do you normally turn those lights on? So you might automate your home system to say, so let's say when you leave and travel, you turn on two lights, one in your bathroom and one in the front of the house, so that people maybe don't know you're gone. So then you automate your home system, and now your home system knows, oh, well, Mike normally turns off his bathroom light or turns on his bathroom light and the light in the front. So when you automate the home system automatically recommends that when you leave, you turn on those two lights because those are the two that you normally turn on. So I could just go on and on with decisions that are made all day, every day. And every decision that we make is captured somewhere, either for our own usage, which is great, or to help partners, companies, brands get smarter about how to contact us, which should create efficiencies. It should. It should mean that we're not receiving all these spam emails and spam text messages because people are recognizing how to be more targeted in reaching us. However, the market is flooded with new ideas too, right? Out of all of this comes new ideas, new products, new services. So there's a little bit of a give and take. Like there are going to be new companies coming out. We're still going to get bombarded with emails, but the idea is that a company or a brand may get smarter. So at least they will be targeting us in a meaningful way, and we'll start to engage with them in a meaningful way, even while around us, new products are entering the market, new people are reaching out to us. But you kind of have to go through that same process of interrogating new brands, new corporations in the same way that we talked about earlier. Like really, it's incumbent on them to really build those awareness kind of activities so that consumers can become knowledgeable about a new brand, understand what products and services that brand or corporation offers, and then start to engage with them slowly, maybe slowly before making a purchase. Some people will just purchase right away, but again, that's a data point. Who are the people who purchase right away versus those who take time and are more intentional? More data points. These are all data points. Every single decision that we make is a data point. This call we're having right now is a data point. So once people start to realize this sort of ubiquitous nature of data in their lives, then it becomes sort of second nature to think about and to make choices a certain way. Even the choices that you make in your house, clothes that you buy for your kids, foods that you buy for your kids, right? Like there was a time when you might not know. And by the time the news got to you that some brand of what do you call it? Like the baby food, some brand of baby food had been taken off the market for some reason, right? You may not learn that for 6 months because technology hadn't arrived. And by the time you learn it, it's too late. You've already been using it. Whereas now it's instantaneous, right? So this concept of getting information in real time, while it seems overwhelming, you'd be shocked at the capacity of the human brain. Like we can take in that information, digest it, assimilate it, and then use it to our benefit when we need to. Now, we can't do it at the rate that like an AI algorithm can, right? So an AI algorithm can go back in history and think about all the similar circumstances and bring that to you in a minute. And that we can't do as well, obviously, but together that information equips you with tools to make, I would say, more comprehensively thought through decisions, either in your personal life or around products and services that you might, purchase or buy.
I really, really hope that this actually improves the relationship that we have with companies and businesses, because it's sounding like a fascinating time right now where things are learning, things are growing, things are getting better. And then I am actually hoping that it becomes more valuable, more impactful, more helpful. And it sounds like it's on that path. It sounds like it's on the road to being a situation where everyone's happy, everyone's helped, everyone has this valuable communication instead of it being sort of right sometimes and wrong some other times. But then it's been like that for a while and it's slowly getting better, getting better, getting better. And I'm very, very keen to see what things will be like in the future. So, Tiffany, I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been fantastic. For those that want to learn more about you, possibly learn more in-depth things regarding data science, how can they do that? How can they connect with you?
So just on that last point, I will say that people, it's never going to be all correct or all right. People as individuals are not always right. People as individuals are the ones that build and train systems. They're not going to be always right. People are inherently biased in many ways. The systems are biased in many ways. And as a result, we have to be very intentional, thoughtful, around how we use the information that's given to us out of an algorithm or a system. It's just something that we all have to be cognizant of and pay attention to, understanding the biases that live within each of us. And on that note, if you would like to talk to me or learn more about data science, AI, data and analytics, customer insights, I can be found on LinkedIn at Tiffany Perkins-Munn. And there I usually post like little snippets, and I also have a blog, which you can access via LinkedIn as well. It's on my website where I have lots of longer articles that talk through data science, AI, and associated topics.
Thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Those that are listening, feel free to subscribe, share the show, tell others, and also leave a review wherever you are listening into your podcasts. Tiffany, it's been great. Thanks so much. And I look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.